This is Wolf Blitzer talking to the State Department, one of the biggest liars, the head of the State Department, as you can see here. But let's listen to this, Nick. I know you've been listening, but so let's listen to some of this. This is pretty wild.
Ned, CNN is now reporting that the United States, the Biden administration, is expected to announce one of the largest military aid packages to Ukraine yet. We're talking about another $2.5 billion aid package. It will include, for the first time, Stryker combat vehicles. But while a handful of Western allies want to provide battle tanks, the U.S. is not expected to provide them.
Let me tell you, this guy on the right, I got to tell you, Nick, he's ex-CIA too, right? Yeah.
They got rid of the middleman. Like back in the day, they used to take sources from the CIA, and that was considered unethical. Now they just said, "Fuck it, we're just gonna have CIA people on the show." But go ahead, CJ.
That run it, like but this guy, I must say, Nick, there must have been other people in his position that came off just better. To me, he is terrible at his position because he's not a good liar. Like you can read it on his face, or at least I feel like I can read it on his face a lot of times. We've covered a couple of clips where he's had an exchange with a particular reporter, and they're like pointing out stuff, and he's finding a hard time to answer the question, but he just comes off as a weasel and a liar without even speaking. Sometimes to me, I just wanted to preface it with that. That's my starting point with this guy. Let's listen.
At least not now. Tell us why. Why not?
Well, Wolf, on any forthcoming announcements, 2 words, stay tuned. As you know, we have made these security assistance announcements at
So I've been talking. Let me rewind. I don't know if you caught what he's meaning. He's like, what's up with the tanks, man? And then he says, stay tuned. That's what he's referring to. So let's rewind it here.
A handful of Western allies want to provide battle tanks. The U.S. is not expected to provide them, at least not now. Tell us why. Why not?
Well, Wolf, on any forthcoming announcements, 2 words, stay tuned. As you know, we...
Who does that? What weapons? Stay tuned, sir, like it's a movie. Coming soon. Who does that to me? Like, we're witnessing so much, Nick. Like the things that we see Aaron Monte, we were talking about yesterday, and maybe we can pull those up. Like the things that is being leaked out that people are just saying out in the open. It's like, in order for them to be saying that, that means any pushback, they don't give a fuck about any pushback. You can push back all you want. This is what we're doing, period. That's what that says to me.
And look at the framing of the question. Remember what I said with Max and what I said when I was on Jimmy Dore show? This guy is asking the question. There's rumors that you guys are not sending the tanks. Why not? Why aren't you saying them everything they want? Why aren't you sending them more questions? This is his version, CJ, of grilling him. His version of grilling him is, why aren't you being more of a war criminal? Unbelievable. So then the war criminals go on CNN, and then they're put on the back foot. Oh, shit. Actually, stay tuned. This is how absurd. And I love these last few seconds we did. Can we show you Fox News? We started with Fox News. Then we went to MSNBC. Now we show you guys how CNN are war picks, too. You see how all of them suck? The people who like the factionalizers, no, they all horrible. Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, let's go.
We have made these security assistance announcements at a good clip over the past year, as this started even before President Putin's invasion of Ukraine started on February 24th. At every step of the way, we have been providing our Ukrainian partners with precisely what they need to defend their country, to defend their sovereignty, to defend their territorial integrity against this brutal land grab, this territorial war of aggression that President Putin has launched. You used the word reluctance before. I think when you look at everything the United States has provided to our Ukrainian partners over the past year, even longer, I don't see reluctance, Wolf. I see determination. I see determination to see to it that our Ukrainian partners have precisely what they need. You can measure that in any number of metrics. More than $24 billion of security.
How does the person who's there just to support you now is the main person? Like, why aren't you doing more? You know what I'm saying? Nigga, I'm just here to kind of just toss you a couple of things. Is why you doing more? It clearly, to me, shows this, in this bleeding of the American taxpayer, it clearly shows to me that this is a U.S. war. This is the U.S.
100%.
fighting this war. Clearly, you know what I mean? Like, you have taken over this fight from Ukraine. You almost literally from the beginning, because they wanted to. They were negotiating peace from the beginning. But I heard you wanted to chime in. I can't see you, but go ahead.
You can continue.
Okay.
Assistance since February 24th, nearly $25 billion since the start of this administration. And at every step of the way, as Russia's plans have evolved and as they have failed each time, we too have changed the arc of what we have provided to Ukraine. When it was about the Battle of Kyiv in the earliest hours and days of...
Now, how long has we been talking? It feels to me like Wolf is just a prop.
Yep.
Wolf is just here to go start the conversation and then let the CIA say what they want to say, sir. Shut up.
Absolutely.
That's what it feels to me like. Now, of course, he's going to interject a couple of more questions, but it's like he is saying so many other things to just give the audience, to convey to the audience, because they have to prepare the nation for giving this money. They have to do these sort of massaging of the PR to sort of sell this money, because it's like they didn't ask us. They're just, so imagine somebody, Nick, going in your pocket, not asking you, just taking money to pay for stuff they want to do. Essentially, that's what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's listen some more from the State Department here.
President Putin's war, we provided Stingers and Javelins, other air defense systems, other armored tank vehicles, armored vehicles, precisely what the Ukrainians needed for that moment. As the battle has moved to the east, as it's moved to the north, as it is taken on that flavor, we have provided HIMARS, longer range systems that our Ukrainian partners can use to target Russian positions on their territory. We've provided a Patriot missile system. We've provided other air defense systems that the Ukrainians have used to extraordinary effect, even as these Iranian-produced drones continue to swarm into Ukraine's towns and cities. The Ukrainians have used the air defense systems that we've provided to shoot down, in some cases, all of these drones. Now, even one drone, even one ballistic missile making its way through this air defense capability is one too many. And we're going to continue to provide our Ukrainian partners with what they need to defend themselves and what they need to take back the territory that's been taken from them.
And the U.S. is now providing the Ukrainians with
take back the territory that's been taken from them.
Bradley fighting vehicles, which is very important. But they keep appealing, President Zelensky keeps appealing for the M1 Abrams battle tanks to be.
Now, he asked a question. That answer wasn't suffice, sir. He's going to press again. Think about that. You are just a reporter, sir.
Yep. And this is way more nefarious than people realize. Who donates to CNN? Who buy ad revenue? Boeing, Raytheon, and weapon defense contractors. Who watches CNN? Mostly older boomers. Some Gen X, older Gen X people, right? They really struggle. Literally, they get like 100,000 of the key demographics in one day. Like, that's nothing. That's nothing, right? So most of their audience is older. So my question to you guys is, why is CNN advertising weapon systems to boomers? Is Aunt Joe going to buy a weapon defense system? No, it's literally a payoff. There's no consumer to advertise on CNN. If you watch NFL football, they're mostly selling manly shit. Then you turn to news channels, then you start seeing a lot more prescription pills. They start talking about Medicare Advantage because they know they're usually targeted ads in these situations. If you watch Cartoon Network, because we got my nephew who run around here every once in a while, I would notice that they had toy commercials on, right? So ads are targeted, and they had like ads about cartoons. So I'm asking you guys this question: why are there weapon defense ads on CNN? Are people watching CNN going to buy weapons from Raytheon? No. There's literally no consumer advantage there. They do it as a payoff A rank payoff. This is sponsored by Boeing. Why the fuck is that there, nigga? You got government contractors. That's there because this guy get paid to push even war criminals to be more into sending weapons, to be more into war. That is way more corrupt, way more nefarious than anything that any state TV could pull off anywhere. This is why I say the United States is the most propagandized country because people don't even realize how deep it is, CJ. It's literally that simple. This guy gets paid.
What do you think this reflects, though, about the GOP? Because I thought the GOP was trying here to bring reins. They are all sworn in. This is the GOP Congress now.
That's a good
or
point.
a GOP House. And what did he say? This is one of the biggest packages, single packages, $2.5 billion. Like, and it's including, I can't remember the weaponry he mentioned, minus the tanks. Like, this is amazing to me. But I also want to interject this article here, and I'm hoping a lot of times when I cover these stories, I'm hoping to get to these stories before you do because I like to get your reaction to it. This here, you may have read this. Has been out a couple of days. Ukrainian defense minister says Kiev is a member of NATO de facto.
CJ, this is me saying this last year. Got us called a Russian propagandist. I got called a Putin puppet for literally saying this. I was saying, guys, the reason why there's Russia aggression because Kiev and Ukraine is essentially de facto NATO member, which is the West escalating and provocating Russia. Then when you said that literally months ago, people were like, "Oh my God, Nick, you spread propaganda." And even if Ukraine wasn't
nobody
NATO,
taking you serious.
yeah, so now they just come out and just start admitting this shit now. Unbelievable. But go ahead, CJ.
Let me read a little bit because even the story, even the story of it is just. In an interview with British Broadcast Corporation aired Friday, Ukrainian Defense Minister Mr. Rez, I'm just going to say that, Reniskov, said that Ukraine is a member of NATO, end quote. The Ukrainian defense minister's statement is a effective admission that Ukrainian military has been functioning as a proxy of the NATO alliance, refuting false claims by the White House that the United States is not a party to this conflict. And I'm going to play the video in just a second because we're going to see that he actually says it. Here's a quote. "We have a lot of modern NATO standard weaponry," he says. "It means that Ukraine as a country and the armed forces of Ukraine or our sector of security and defense became the member of NATO de facto, not de jure, because we have the weaponry, because we have the interoperability,
I think.
Yeah, there we go. Level of the communication with our partners, and I'm sure that in the next future we will become a member of NATO de facto de jure." So let's listen to him actually say it here in this video. And if you need me to stop it, just let me know.
Yeah, feel free.
Ukraine's defense minister says his country has become a de facto member of the NATO military alliance as Western nations continue to supply weapons for the war against Russia. Speaking to the BBC, Alexei Reznikov said there had been a change among some allies, once concerned that the military assistance could be seen as an escalation by Russia. Well, our correspondent Hugo Bachega sat down with him.
We have a lot of modern NATO standard weaponry. It means that Ukraine as country and the armed forces of Ukraine or our sector of security and defense became the member of NATO de facto, not de jure, but de facto, because we have weaponry, we have the understanding how to use it, we have this interoperability level of the communication with our partners, and I'm sure that in the next future we will become the member of NATO de jure.
Well, that's a controversial statement. You're saying that Ukraine is de facto NATO member.
Why controversial? It's true. It's a fact. I'm a lawyer, you know. I'm operated with the facts.
But the perception has been that any kind of, let's say, tanks being sent to Ukraine would be seen as an escalation by Russia. You're not concerned about how Russia could respond?
I have a war in my country. What kind of escalation level should be more? They striking, they hitting my cities, my hospitals, my kindergartens, my schools, and they killed a lot of civilians, a lot of
That's
children.
Why you should negotiate for peace. Usually when people are invaded, they want to end the invasion, right? They want to negotiate for peace. They're not interested in doing that. You guys want to impose your sovereignty on people who do not want to be part of Ukraine. The people in the Donbass, people in eastern Ukraine that want to be part of Russia, you're trying to impose your sovereignty on them. And then after shelling them, after killing 14,000 plus of them, you now want to pretend you're the victim. After the Azov thugs, when after people who disagree with them politically, Zelensky banning political parties, banning the Orthodox Church, Azov thugs attacking black Muslims, reminding people of being persecuted. After all this shit, you now want to cry crocodile tears, and you want the rest of the world to go down in nuclear conflict because of the conflict that you guys were complicit on escalating. Because of the Maidan coup. But go ahead, CJ. Let's continue. It's unbelievable.
And I must just interject this again. We've talked about this in another segment when we covered that article, but the reason tanks are considered a real escalation is because tanks have a big logistics system. It is required to maintain them. And one of the articles we read, Nick, with you, 60 gallons per hour the tank needs when it's when it's deployed. 60 gallons. So it's a large logistical system. It has to be brought in by trains. And the reason it's an escalation because those tanks being brought in by trains have to have a no-fly zone. Otherwise, Russia would shoot them down. Why would Russia sit there? Oh, y'all gonna bring us some tanks so you can bulldoze through? No. So that means that puts air forces of NATO and the U.S. in direct combat with shooting down any sort of attempt to attack any of these tanks. And this is the reason why it's seen as a real escalation. But let's listen to a little more of what he says. This guy, it almost feels like, Nick, they know the public relations of it, like they're losing steam. This is why Zelensky came out here to do that propaganda thing in Congress, but they know. So now they're just like, look, people ain't down with this shit anyway, so we might as well just go ahead and tell them we doing this. Yeah, we de facto NATO, we running this thing. That's how I feel like it feels like it's coming off. But let's listen to some more of this guy speak.
Army of rapists, murder, and looters. What the next level of escalation? They're here in my country.
Our correspondent in Kyiv is James Waterhouse, who joins me now. James, obviously Ukraine isn't a member of NATO, but by saying that they're a de facto member, is the defense minister trying to lock in help, or is he trying to just underline the kind of Western help that he's getting?
I think it's the latter, to be honest with you. I think Hugo was talking to a defense minister who is no longer afraid. I mean, you need to cast your minds back to the build up to this invasion at the start of the war, where such a suggestion would make the West extremely worried, because the Ukrainian government in January was getting extremely frustrated with what they saw as the lack of Western help. Countries like Germany that were providing helmets or military hospitals. Allies didn't want to provide offensive measures at the time because they didn't want Russia to escalate at a time when they were gathering thousands of troops on the border.
What do you say to that, Nick? At the time, in the beginning, he's saying that they didn't want to escalate at the time. That's why they wasn't sending them. But now they're like, oh, have these tanks, motherfuckers. Like, what do you think? What is the...
this is more evidence
Go ahead.
No, great question, because there's more evidence that the West is trying to draw this conflict out. And that's just another example that they don't have the best interest of the Ukrainians. They benefit for drawing this war out because their real intention is not to protect and save Ukrainian lives. It's to weaken Russia. So the longer this war go on, the more Russia will be weakened, more people they will spend, the more they will spend on the military, more equipment they will lose, and also to ensure maximum profit for weapon defense contractors. So it's better for them to draw this out so they can continue to break quarterly profit revenue. So just like you had the Finland Prime Minister, Anthony Blinken said there's no end to the war coming anytime soon. That's why they say stuff like, "Oh, we're not gonna do stuff. We're not gonna send a weapon yet to escalate." Then 3 months later, they will, because it's about that 3 months waiting time. You see what I'm saying? It's about drawing this out as far as possible, because it's not really about winning. It's about sacrificing Ukraine for the two goals, which is definitely possible. Because even though Russia is dominating and there's no path to victory for Ukraine, this does weaken Russia significantly. They are losing soldiers. They are spending a lot of the military equipment. So that is what the West wants. And now
in preparation for China, do you think is in preparation for China just weakening Russia in this way? Because Russia can't back up China. Is that the whole concept, or what is your
thoughts? That's such a perfect point, CJ. Because Putin and Xi met earlier last year, and they made it clear that this new Russia-China partnership, they're going to escalate to the next level. And Russia is leading the charge in having African countries join their alliance to reject the Western narrative on this conflict and building a relationship with China. So their strategy, and and one of the reasons I know is because they will have casual conversations talking to each other on these corporate news, and they will just say stuff like this. They're like, "Yeah, it's very important to weaken Russia and Ukraine because China and Russia got a strategic partnership. So we can weaken Russia before that partnership builds. That will serve Western interests." And I'm like, "You just said that in an interview publicly." you realize I can use this as content now, right? And that's why I was like, don't watch news to inform yourself. Watch news to see what our enemies are saying, because they literally will say this shit right in the open. God, I don't remember why. But they would just say this shit all the time. But anyway, let's continue, TJ. That's such a good point, because that does play a giant role in why they want to weaken Russia, because the main event, and I covered this a few streams ago, the main event is always China. Russia is child's play. Russia is crucial to weaken China's partnership. But China is the final goal. That's the big Hail Mary play. But go ahead, CJ.
In May 2022, White House press spokesperson Jen Psaki was asked by a reporter, quote, 8 in 10 Americans are expressing worries about a wider war and the possible use of nuclear weapons by Russia. And given that Russia has made it clear that they believe NATO has engaged in a proxy war, what's the White House message to worried Americans right now? End quote. Psaki's reply, I know that is the Russian talking point on this, but it is not a proxy war. She added, quote, this is a war between Russia and nobody.
Go ahead, CJ. But no one believes
nobody. She added, quote, this is a war between Russia and Ukraine. NATO is not involved, end quote. She added that, quote, it's important and vital for all of us to not repeat the Kremlin talking points on this front, end quote. Nick, any thoughts? I mean, actually, let me read this last quote so you can comment on all of these.
So we all know they lie, but once again, I cannot emphasize enough. There's a reason why, and you said it's the one on your stream, that you use certain sources. Like sometimes you pull sources from the boutique left just to show that this stuff that you can say, or stuff that they, or you will do it so it will show that they know about this, but they're still being dumb. And that's a very good strategy. That's why I will show you guys a story that literally comes from like the Atlantic and New York Times, where they say, yeah, there's NATO operatives in Ukraine. Yeah, NATO, they're literally NATO intelligence officers that are giving advice to Ukraine. They will admit this in literally corporate news. And then Psaki and the Biden administration will come out and just lie to the American people, say, yeah, there's no evidence of NATO involvement. I'm like, bro, even your corporate media is proving you wrong and as a liar.
What is the purpose of that, though? I don't understand. What is the purpose of that? Do they think they'll lose public sentiment if Americans think it's NATO? I don't understand. What is the purpose of them trying to mask that NATO is involved when all they're going to do is admit to it 6 or 9 months later? Like, that's what I don't really... That's the part that's missing from my understanding. But let's read on to what she says here. Russia's talking point is a euphemism in Washington for a true statement that the White House wishes to lie about.
That's pretty bad.
That's pretty funny. All right, I think I'm gonna end it there. Not the segment, but this. I'm sorry, either the segment, because I was gonna pass it to you for comment if you had any last words. But if you didn't, we can move off this segment here, sir. If you had
I see, and I'm gonna end the segment this way, because I see a new Mick Wallace video just dropped, and I see you calling out NATO, so I want to watch that. I haven't seen it yet, obviously. I also want to share this headline. I wanted to interject this somewhere during the Max conversation. Didn't get a chance to. I think this fits now. The head of the Orthodox Church warned of nuclear catastrophe. The same way that the Pope that just died was calling for peace in Ukraine. Then the Orthodox Church had been very vocal how they want peaceful relationships between Ukrainians and Russian people. And then Zelensky responded by banning them in the country. And I was going to play a video. I haven't seen this, to be honest. I literally just saw this on the timeline. Mick Wallace is always good. I want to see what he's saying.
He's one of the people you can go in blind and feel pretty secure.
I saw it. He called out NATO. He called out NATO, and you were just talking about NATO. So I'm like, this is a good time to interject this. Let's see what he had to say.
President, Commissioner. When Zelensky pushed for the special tribunal last December, he said that without justice, there can be no peace. The reality is that war is the greatest injustice suffered on this earth, and too many are working hard to prolong this one. Zelensky should be at the negotiating table, but instead tours the world selling his forever war, as Ukraine is destroyed and conscripted Ukrainians are killed by the tens of thousands. In the past 25 years, the imperialist powers have perpetrated wars of aggression against Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. They've killed millions of people and displaced millions more, dropped toxic munitions, and committed countless war crimes. NATO members have never faced justice for these crimes. Of course, Russia should also be held to account for any crimes it commits, but the list is long. If we actually care about justice, we must stop the antagonism and hypocrisy and get down to the real work of peacemaking.
I still don't understand how Mick Wallace and Claire Daly gets away with this. Anyone know? I literally don't know. Maybe I need to understand her country more. But like, how do Claire Daly and Mick Wallace? I didn't see this video. I went in blind. How are they allowed to get away with this? Anyone know? I'm gonna look at the comments. Like how? Like no one in the United States has the balls to say half of what they say.
I haven't figured it out either. I don't know what it is, but something's going on and something's different over there because I wish that some of that water that they're drinking could be over here with these clowns.